All right, so all my life covering college football, back since November of 81, if I went to a national signing day or we mentioned anything, it was that a player was going to sign what was then called a letter of intent. And that now, Paul, is no more.
No, it'll be now an academic aid and revenue sharing contract eventually once that gets finalized. So no longer like the National Letter of Intent rules changed last year anyway because of the transfer rules, because used to be when you signed a National Letter of Intent, even if you wanted to get out of it, a day after, you still had to sit out at least a semester, depending on like the length of time that had passed and all these other kind of arbitrary rules that they had. Well, since there's no rules involving that anymore, there's no need for a national letter of intent, and it needs to just be an academic or an athletic aid contract and agreement, and then the revenue sharing deal. So that's what it's going to be now. So signing day, not really that different, but the rules are different.
Yeah, I mean, it's an elimination of language that we've been so used to for so long. I mean, it's been around for a really long time. Predates my entire life by quite a bit as well. So it's been a thing out there in the college sports world and a part of our language for decades now. So I don't know, though, that many people walked around saying like NLI or National Letter of Intent all that often, but it's still something that's another tweak to just kind of the established system that we always knew. So not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. They just signed a financial aid agreement now, as Paul was describing, and there will therefore be off limits, although we know how that works in college sports. So they'll be off limits to what extent they can be off limits. But the NLI has been replaced by NIL in terms of the major conversation the last couple of years, and now it's not a part of the conversation at all. So just an interesting little tweak for people who've been following along for a long time.
I think, I tell you what messed me up. I've always considered it National Letter of Intent. I rarely said that when I covered National Signing Day. I just said they signed with Oklahoma, Texas, whoever it might be. But then when NIL got involved and there's NLI, it kind of like for a while took me like when your sight's a little bit fuzzy. So now the National Letter of Intent is now no longer. It's just a changing of what they call it.
You and I would compare it to is when the WWE changed from the WWF, like forever. You just like you had it in your head like it's WWE. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of like that kind of thing where you just see it and you're like, well, I'm going to watch the WWF. And you're like, you're going to watch Panda Bears or what?
Yeah, I think we're finally at a point where that's been eliminated, but it took a really long time for people, much longer than when it was the WWF, and then they dropped the W, and that's what everybody knew for the longest of times. Yeah, there. And then I don't remember exactly when that was, late 90s, early 2000s, when they flipped to WWE, and for the longest time, everybody still called it WWF, and now it's been around so long that it's just the norm. And this is even lesser than that, right? And there weren't a lot of people rolling around talking about NLI. It was just the official language, so that's changed. And I guess the most interesting thing, as we'll just quickly coast by this change in comparison to many of the others being made in college sports, this one just not even a bump in the road. The fact that they, haven't decided to change the signing periods, even though that was a big topic of discussion, and eliminating a signing period or having, it moved on the calendar and all of that. So they're putting that off for right now. No vote on the June high school signing period. That was a hot topic there a little while back. So that'll be something to continue following along, though, when it comes to just the whole signing of recruits ecosystem.
All right. I had traded a text or two, I think it was last week, with Josh Furlong. He covers Utah football for KSL Sports. And I asked him about, is there a wear-down factor with what's happening with Cam Rising week to week? This is a tweet from him yesterday. The rampant speculation about the extent and severity of Cam Rising's injury, Utah quarterback, and his potential return to the field continue to spread like wildfire, similarly creating a destructive path until snuffed out. Then, yesterday evening, came up with this one. Kyle Whittingham on his coach's show, ESPN 700, about Cam Rising. We will see what happens this week with Cam. And we're hoping. I think it's looking encouraging, but I'm not going to say anything until we actually get to the game. That's probably as upbeat a comment he's made in a while, but it's pretty much the same thing he's made for a long time. But Josh told me, he goes, most of this is a small percentage of fans, but there is an attrition factor on the wait and see with him.
Well, I mean, Craig's been very articulate about this, and I just think that this situation, what we saw at Baylor a couple weeks ago where the game kicks off and you're like, there's a lot of guys that aren't playing today. Like, what happened? There's just coaches all over. Like, Mike Norvell doesn't do it. Like, there's tons of coaches just don't give any injury information, and there's no reason. It's pointless not to. It's just old school habits that die hard. This is why we need injury reports. This is why, because this is silly. You've got fans that are sitting there waiting. They just want to see Cam Rising play. That's all they want to know. They want to know legitimately, am I going to go be able to see Cam Rising play? And every week it's like, maybe. Like, it's stupid.
Yeah, I don't think we should start making rules changes for gamblers. I don't care how popular and how much money is involved, but I know that that's what they're doing more so than just for the average fan to have these injury reports. I mean, that's very clear what the purpose behind that really is. It's not to just be as honest as possible for your regular viewers, but I do think there's a lot of value in it just for your everyday fans still to know, like, hey, these guys aren't playing or this guy is playing or whatever, and I think it's nice to know as somebody who likes the sport to just know who's playing. Imagine that, like to want to know, like, hey, who's in this movie I'm going to see, right? Like, you can take an occasional surprise, but you just kind of like to know what you're walking into. So, I think most Utah fans would like to know the status of their starting quarterback every week and not have it be some big mystery. You use the word attrition, though. Like, that's not anywhere close to how I'm feeling about the decision. I'm just annoyed by it. Like, that's what my whole point is with Utah fans. It's like, not that they're like worn down or they're beaten down or whatever. It's just annoying. That's what it is. It's just annoying to have this be a thing every single week because they're tough folks. They'll be fine, but there's no wear down. It's just
I think
annoying.
Maybe attrition's the wrong word,
Yeah.
but he said people are worn out by it.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I just think of the phrasing a little bit differently, but yeah, I get that, and yeah, that's totally how I see it as well. It's an annoying story that never goes away. Think about it. It's like every single week for going on over a year now is will Cam Rising play? How could you not be annoyed by that? So yeah, that continues on, and I mean, the thing about injury reports, you at least say, like, hey, he did this to his finger. It's 6 to 8 weeks. And then if he comes back, great. And if he doesn't, that's fine. But, like, this is the most mysterious finger injury that occurred from a sideline push that you've ever seen, right? Like, it's been, 5 weeks since he's been out from this push into the cooler?
Second week of the season.
And we don't know what's wrong with him still? It's just this finger that's kind of messed up. It's bizarre.
Well, and then people start guessing, which you should never do about an injury. It's kind of dangerous in a way, especially if you're a broadcaster. You may want to say there's a leg injury, but to sit there and say it's a knee or an ankle, in this case, did he cut it? Did he break it? Did he jam it? Did he dislocate it? And then maybe Kyle Whittingham doesn't think it's any of our business, and it's his football team, but we'll see what happens if he's going to play this week.
I'm not a big gambling guy by any stretch, but I would be all in favor of injury reports. We all know that's not for the common fan, like I was saying a few minutes ago. Like, that's directly as a result of all the gambling going on as much as anything else. But as just a common fan, I too would like to see injury reports. I do think they provide just an extra layer of kind of a professionalism, not like making it a pro sport, but a lot of what they're trying to do is making it a pro sport. The money's making it more of a pro sport. So, yeah, why not have pro sports type of injury reports? So I salute Joey McGuire for being one of the people on the forefront of that and doing that voluntarily. And the leagues that have passed that, like the SEC, I think that's great, and I hope the Big 12 follows suit. I think that would be a nice step forward just to, make things a bit more official.
Okay, you brought up Caden Jenkins in an article today, the cornerback who was a freshman All-American last year. He's missed the last couple of games or so. Well, what is the number of games you have to play or can play before you keep your red shirt?
4.
And he's played in 4.
Yeah.
And I even reached out to, just because of the way things are, hey, is he hurt? Is what's going on with him? Because I wanted to know, Could this be a setup for? But Caden was the guy that led the charge for everybody coming back with GXG.
But I would say, like, from a coaching perspective right now, okay, if they're 2-5, correct? Baylor is 2-4.
2-4.
2-4. Okay, if they lose 3 more games before they win another one, and he still hasn't played, and if I could get reassurances that he was going to be back, although you can't,
right?
Like redshirting would maybe be on the table because you're like, well, if it's lingering. Now, I do agree. Craig, you said about we don't even make rules to help out gamblers. Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. I just think it's for fan purposes. I think it needs to be done. Yes, it's going to benefit gamblers, but also like this whole thing. I also think it's an insult to the intelligence of everybody around. Like, and I've said this a million times. You think the coaches aren't preparing for both things? What do you do? Like, what do you do when you have the same situation where you don't know if the opponent's quarterback's going to play? I just think it's silly gamesmanship that is it's one of those things that doesn't really work, Yeah,
no, and there's probably somebody that's within the program. And how do you think the odds, the lines of certain games go up or down because of the infiltration of what people know or who they know they can contact? By the way, before we go to the next deal, yes, praying for those on the west side, the Gulf side of Florida, because this is a banger of hurricanes. Now, it apparently has dropped in the cat number, but this is still, they just had this, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and here it comes again. We have family in that area. Paul grew up in that area. This kind of Fort Myers to like Tampa, and there's still a lot of unknown yet. But
I got folks in Naples, so they're right there, the southern side of the
family
Gulf.
along in Naples. My brother lives on the East Coast, which could get still some of those like whips of chains of wind that create tornadoes. My oldest brother, Michael, and his family drove to Tulsa yesterday to get out of there and said he was able to get there last night. So apparently he left early enough without any kind of traffic. For thoughts and prayers for everybody. This one came from the weirdest direction. Is what really, when I saw that, I said, am I seeing this right?
Yeah, it's like
it's like boomerang.
Yeah, it's like
it
this
never
right here.
ever comes from the Mexico, like the country east, and this one did, and it's weird and it's big and it's monstrous, and so good luck to everybody in its path.
Yeah,
now,
I know that UCF canceled all their sports outside of football. I was reading about that yesterday afternoon, that they had pretty much shoved everything to the side, and they're going to play football by ear and just see how the storm comes and goes. But yeah, I mean, I got people in Tampa, Fort Pierce, Naples. I know Fort Pierce is on the other side, so they're a little bit easier. But yeah, I mean, it's all like the tornado mapping and things like that. So all the UCF folks, all just the folks in general down that area, like definitely that best, most positive possible wishes we could send you. We're sending you for sure.
All right. Now, Texas OU, 2:30 Saturday at the Cotton Bowl. Texas #1 in the country, and Oklahoma in the top 20 and hanging around in there after the comeback win. The quarterback changed to the freshman and Hawkins and Moore. Who are they? How good are they? You never know with this game, because I would have lost money last year if I would have said that Oklahoma would beat Texas even a year ago, and that was a team that we know Texas played in the semifinals. Brent Venables, Texas has no weaknesses on paper or on tape. Now, I know that you can say, well, he's playing. No, that's true. I think there's probably got to be something, but that's Brent Venables. He also went on to say they're playing really, really well. Our guys are excited about the challenge. I can't wait to see what happens. We have seen, even back in the early years of Bob Stoops, year 2, when Texas was, and they were trying to figure themselves out with Mac Brown, and they beat the living crap out of UT like 2 or 3 years in a row. And it's like, you just never know in this game, but it does appear, and Barry Switzer talks about the game in a minute, about that Texas to me would be favored. I don't know what the line is, but I'm going to say
touchdowns.
That I would say 10 to 14 points. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a huge line. I'm just curious to see like what happens when you have a line like that in this game where it makes no sense that it should be. Now, a couple years ago, had the game, they're on their essentially third string quarterback, and Texas rolled over them, but Oklahoma,
that was the biggest blowout in that game's history.
Yeah, so there have been those situations before. I just have a feeling that given that this Oklahoma team they're not good on offense. Like there's no sugarcoating that, but they are pretty solid on defense. I just don't see a 14-point spread in the game that you can take a touchdown off it most years just no matter who's the better team, just because it gets weird. There's a lot of pressure and rivalry vibes in this game.
Yeah, and I should clarify, that was the largest margin for Oklahoma in that game. For UT, in that game. That was the largest margin, was that 49-0 blowout a couple years ago that was just insane and about the lowest of the low that you could feel as an Oklahoma fan, even though they turned around and have a great win last year that was completely unexpected and gave UT their only blemish there for a while. Was their only little road bump in going and winning the Big 12 in there last year. But yeah, this is a crazy game. It's amongst the best in the rivalry games I've experienced, Michigan, Ohio State. So this to me is number one. Like it is. I've been there and been able to take it in and just watched pretty much all these games for the longest of times now, and I can't wait. Even though, it's last I looked, it was 14.5-point spread. I don't know what it is now at this point. I'd imagine somewhere along those lines still, because not really much reason for that to move down because there's plenty of hype, and rightfully so, for Texas. Brent Venables providing some of that himself, and I think he's probably seeing exactly what he's saying, because I've watched him too, and I'm not a football X's and O's guy by any means, but they look pretty damn good. Like I don't see anything where I'm like, yeah, they're not good there. Like everything looks pretty sharp and pretty talented and pretty star-filled. And on the same side for Oklahoma, this is Red River, so who the hell knows? Throw out the spreads and all that crap. It's a rivalry game, so they're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at Texas and vice versa, and we'll see where it ends up on the other side. I do think Texas is the logical pick here, but I'm not ruling out Oklahoma pulling something crazy and making this weirder than expected.
Charlie Strong had a team that beat them. That was a shocking game. Obviously, last year with Dylan Gabriel throwing that last-second touchdown back and forth, it's been that way. Barry Switzer reminisces about the Texas OU series, and I asked him, was this the game where you had more emotions and meant more one way or the other that you always played each year? And he is coming up in about 15 or 20 minutes. Paxton in the chat room. Last time that Texas was a 14-point favorite was 2005, Vince Young. They won the national title, and they won 45-12. So, yeah, that's part of the history of that. Now, by the way, I just got a note. Aaron De La Torre, he's a defensive coordinator at Denton Ryan High School. His son Alex played football at Texas. He's also, he himself played at Stephen F. Austin. He passed away. If you knew Aaron De La Torre, a long-time high school football coach with connections, his son played at UT, and that note just came down. So thoughts and prayers to the De La Torre family. Dave Bartu has this note. 3 teams in the Big 12. Top 25 of total team scoring efficiency, offense plus defense through 6 weeks. And then he said, is this where the champion of the conference comes from? And this, of course, includes Iowa State and BYU and Colorado. And another note about Colorado's defense here in just a second.
Just like we picked it at the beginning of the year, this was my top 3. I don't know why everybody made fun of me, of Iowa State, Colorado, and BYU. I had it. It wasn't at all Kansas State, Utah, and Kansas.
For the northernmost teams in the conference? Cincinnati would be in that.
This is it doesn't surprise me that Iowa State is efficient on both sides. It surprises me that BYU is, and it especially surprises me that Colorado is right now. Because one thing I could tell you about their style of watching them last year and then early on this year is it was anything but efficient. It was kind of like, let's see what happens when we, throw this ball over here to this fast guy. Like, there was not a whole lot of, I thought, structure to it, but I've been disproven in the last 3 weeks. They've taken some steps forward, and happy to admit when I'm wrong there. But yeah, this I did not see coming efficiency-wise from 2 of these teams for sure.
Yeah, Iowa State was a team that I think a lot of people, including myself, felt pretty good about, that they'd be right there in the mix. And so they are, as expected, but the other 2 certainly weren't on the top of anybody's minds. Even fans of their programs weren't sitting there touting them as, conference champion leaders at this point. So been great to see both teams find a different gear than people anticipated and be at the halfway point and in both of their cases being undefeated in the Big 12, and in the case of Iowa State and BYU being undefeated overall. They're all sitting really nice right now, so they're right there at the top. I still wonder, what does Utah have to say? If Rising does come back, they've got to be in that mix. K-State still very much has some things to say, and don't forget about Texas Tech. I mean, they're leading the conference right now. Technically, they've got the most wins and the best record at 3-0, so they'll have plenty of opportunities to have some say as well. But, yeah, as far as efficiency goes, Iowa State's not a surprise, but BYU, there's like nothing super impressive about BYU. You know what I mean? Like they're just efficient. They're just, Retzlaff will throw the occasional pick that'll make things a little bit dicey, but they're just solid on defense, and they make enough plays offensively, primarily through the passing game, to just get the job done. And they've gone and won in different ways. They blew out K-State. They edged out SMU on the road. They have the big win and hold on against Baylor. Like, they're just winning, and I don't find them to be like particularly like, oh wow, look at BYU, but who cares if you continue to win games, and that's just kind of what they're doing. So we'll see if they can maintain that. I do think that they've got some potential bumps in the road, but a very manageable schedule if they play well. So yeah, I think those three are joined by K-State, Utah, and Tech as far as still kind of sorting through these next 6 weeks. But good on Colorado and BYU in particular to be up in that mix.
This is almost, you hear this on, they have like a national theme on some weekends, rivalry weekend or whatever. This is almost in a way a potential early on one of maybe 2 or 3 weeks in the Big 12 where there's a separation opportunity with Arizona at BYU. That would pretty much knock Arizona down another notch if they don't win. Iowa State, West Virginia, K-State, Colorado. This is going to be a fun weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Not to mention Utah in Tempe against Arizona State. So I got this from Diane. She watches our show. Against Colorado, North Dakota State was held to 62.5 yards below their average per game. Against Nebraska, they had 12 more yards than the average yards per game rushing. Against Colorado State, they held them to 43.6 yards below their average. Baylor, 14 more yards than their average. And Baylor, remember, played really well for 58 minutes and 50 seconds or so. And then they held UCF to 105 yards below their average. And, of course, they were rushing for dozens and hundreds of yards. They're holding their opponents on defense to an average of 37 yards below their average per game and 0.65 yards below their yards per carry. And only Nebraska was able to rush for more yards per carry and also above their average. So they have tightened that ship up a little bit. Doesn't mean they're perfect, but that's one of the reasons why they went on the road against UCF and were able to win. And one of the reasons, if they just get a little bit better, coming off an off week, now they have the game this week against K-State. Maybe they've turned the corner with some things that otherwise had been weaknesses or a part of their Achilles heel.
Yeah, look, they've been impressive, and I can't state enough how wrong I was about them. But the evidence was there that they just weren't very good, and they kind of lacked discipline and all these other buzzwords. But after that Nebraska game, they came together as a team, and the defense. People kept saying, "Hey, this defense is good. This defense is good," and I was like, "Is it? Or what are they playing teams with good offenses?" I think this week's test will tell us a lot about them when they play a team like K-State. That they've not played a playmaker at quarterback like this in their stretch. So I'm curious to see what happens when Avery Johnson gets out there and makes them have to kind of pick one thing or the other.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some Raiola to him.
Yeah.
So I think that they got flashes of that against Raiola, but obviously he's still very young and not, anywhere close to the player he's going to be. But as far as dynamic quarterbacks, they got a little bit of a taste of that. But, yeah, not much of one up to this point. So this will be their, biggest test since then, or maybe biggest test overall. I'm just really interested in this rushing attack of K-State's, which is their strength, versus Colorado defense that's much better and playing better and obviously confident, but actually having substance behind that confidence. And, yeah, they've been a nice surprise. I was very fair with Colorado at the beginning of the season, I feel like, compared to a lot of my media brethren. I certainly didn't, anticipate them, though, necessarily being in this position. So I've been surprised and in a good way by Deion and the Buffs and what they've done to this point. But, yeah, I can't wait for this game because of the atmosphere, this whole Big 12 North collision between these two teams. They used to go play for Big 12 titles and try to beat the other to get that Big 12 North spot, and now this may be a preview of the conference championship game for all we know. I mean, but regardless, I'm very much looking forward to this. I talked about BYU and being wrong about them and not being just blown away by anything that you see, just being impressed with kind of the whole package and how it all works together. Obviously, Colorado has some things that you're like, oh, wow, those make your eyeballs pop out when Travis Hunter makes a big play. They got a little bit more of that flash that drops your jaw a little bit, or Shedeur doing his thing. But, yeah, I think Colorado's in a really good spot, but this weekend will be a huge fork in the road for what direction this goes. And if they win this game, man, then the hype train's going to be just – chugging along. And if they lose this game, I guess it'll depend on the fashion in which they lose. But, this makes for a spicy contest that ought to draw a pretty big rating on Saturday night and get some people interested in the Big 12.
Couple of more notes, and I agree, man. They win this one, and they're already bringing in big numbers, even when you weren't so sure about them. The numbers they have put in, Big 12 and TV in general missed them last weekend playing on any of the networks.
And kudos to them. They shut down UCF. I mean, in a game where they had the big emotional win over Baylor, and then you wonder how they respond a few days later. Is there a hangover from the success and the drama? Does that carry over? And it didn't. They just went out there and handled UCF, and clearly UCF has some issues now that we're realizing, but still, it was mightily impressive for a team that a lot of people didn't think had defense whatsoever. They've changed that, but they will get tested this weekend with that whole crew in the backfield for K-State.
All right. Now, this is from Max Olson. He'll join us tomorrow. We've got a packed lineup tomorrow. Includes Sam Conn, Max Olson, Zach Gelb, Mickey, and others. But he does the stop rate. Best defenses in America, the stop rate. Ohio State, Texas, at the top. Army gets a lot of credit for their time of possession and what they do on offense, but look where they are on defense, plus a lot of it can also be the fact that their time of possession keeps other offenses off the field. Tennessee, Iowa State. Then you go down the list at number 8, Oklahoma. You have Texas and OU in the top 10. Go down a little bit more, there's Colorado at 13. There's Utah at 17. These are the best stop rate defenses on average of how many of the drives in each game end up without points. And Max does this. He started doing this maybe 2 to 3 years ago. So number 1, Ohio State, Texas 2, and there's the rest of Liberty 20. By the way, they won late last night in overtime. But there we are with that list.
Yeah, that was a closer game than anticipated because I kind of wrote that one off. And sure enough, they get stressed a little bit, but they find a way to win. So good for them. But I wonder if there's going to be any bumps in the road, or we're going to be hearing them hanging mythical national championship banners because they go unbeaten with this schedule and then they don't get into the playoff or something like that. But, yeah, they still got a couple of tests. But that was closer than I thought. I was thinking we might see that upset that, finally put a little ding in that perfect record. But alas.
Yeah, no, they're unbeaten. They're unbeaten. Now, whether or not it's enough depends on what the other teams around the group of 5 also do when it comes to the college football playoff. Paul, by the way, speaking of a banner with a national championship, even though it's not official, we know UCF had theirs, right?
Yeah.
Did FSU ever?
No. They shouldn't do that. We've won one before.
No, that's my point. I can't imagine.
And if they do,
you'll be upset.
I'll be very upset.
Yeah, and Liberty would have no leg to stand on because of the schedule that they play. That's the whole thing about them being unbeaten is who they've played, or rather who they've not played compared to a lot of teams. But, hey, good for them, and if they go unbeaten in the regular season, it'll be an interesting dilemma for the committee and a unique exercise with the expanded playoff now because, there's more room to include. But, do you reward a weak schedule, or how do you do that? It all come out in the wash when the records are finalized. But that was a potential hiccup last night that they got past, so congrats to the Flames on that. I will say, though, Caden Salter's been really quiet this year. Felt like every week last week I was circling his box score or last year, yeah, and was every week he had some really nice stat line and performance, and this year it's been a lot quieter with him on that Flames team. So anyways, they got the win over FIU.
I went to the box score as the game was going into overtime, and I just said, okay, let me see what he's done. He had 148 yards passing or 78.
Nothing jumping out.
Yeah. All right, let's go to this one, Garrett. The unbeaten team, speaking of Liberty, because they're still undefeated, so this graphic still matters, 12 of these teams are still unbeaten in FBS. Army, Navy, Miami, Pitt, BYU and Iowa State, Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, one of those two is going out the window this week, Penn State, Liberty, and Texas. The Army-Navy thing, you guys had that stat a couple of Fridays ago, maybe last Friday, that 1945, the last time they were both 5-0. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're playing good football, too. And but there's some other ones. Pitt's had a couple of scares. Miami's had some scares.
Cincinnati should have beat Pitt.
No, absolutely. That's why I mentioned it. Yeah.
Penn State had one against Bowling Green, of all
Penn
people.
State,
But we were going to lose at least one of these this week. In Oregon and Ohio State. So
that will get trimmed up a little bit. And I'm trying to think of who all plays each other on this list. I mean, there's nobody on there for Texas to play. They don't have any unbeatens left because now Georgia. Wait,
Georgia
lost to Alabama. Yeah. So now that Georgia's not sitting there unbeaten and Bama and all that. So Iowa State doesn't play BYU. I was looking for that one. I don't think that they play each other, so maybe that's a Big 12 championship game type of matchup instead if they're both able to somehow run the table. But, yeah, they're sitting in a strong spot. I think Pitt's been a really nice surprise. Eli Holstein's done a really good job there, man. Like, the guy got recruited to a lot of the big schools for a reason, and he's won them a couple games with his play late, including that Cincinnati game. So they've been a nice surprise out of the ACC. Certainly, Miami, one could argue maybe they should have a loss, just the way things have worked out, but they keep getting it done.
They had a couple of depth. Virginia Tech finish,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You could argue that maybe they should have one, but they don't. But Cam Ward's been sensational and worth every penny that they signed him up for. And Indiana is one of the big cute stories, I guess, all the Signetti shirts and everything that I've seen online. And I guess, was it Joe Buck that's the big Indiana grad?
Troy Aikman is Joe is a grad. Yeah. Troy's now apparently jumped on the bandwagon with him.
Yeah. So I could see that. But I saw Joe Buck with the Signetti shirt on. So it's an interesting group, but we are going to see some attrition off this. And starting this weekend, like Paul said, with Ohio State, Oregon, I'm looking forward to that one.
In Miami, Pittsburgh, and the ACC do not play, at least in the regular season. They're not on the same schedule. Now, Georgia wide receiver Colby Young. We told you the story this week about his he and his girlfriend. They came to the apartment. She went and eventually gave her story. We even read part of the police report. He has been suspended indefinitely for what was apparently what has been alleged to be squeezing her abdomen and having bruises and other marks on her. She's pregnant. They were boyfriend, girlfriend. They were in a relationship, and it ended badly a couple of nights ago. He has been suspended indefinitely. Georgia wide receiver Colby Young.
Yeah, I think that you leave the coaches no choice in a situation like this. You have to, and this isn't I'm glad that we're not doing hey, let's see what happened. No, you can suspend a guy pending results of this. That's the one thing that's kind of bothered me about all of these things. Look, they get in trouble with the law. They're suspended until it's solved. Now, if they turn out to be innocent, then good for them, but they don't need to be by the team when all this is going on.
Yeah, I mean, they probably made the right choice here. And I don't even mean probably. They made the right choice to suspend him until they figure out more information. And we certainly aren't the holders of the right information as far as we know. We just know the police report just like everybody else. So hopefully, I always feel with any cases like this, he said, she said, or whatever the case may be, I hope whatever the real story is, that's what gets eventually settled on and gets dealt with. So if he's guilty of what's being alleged, then I hope he gets punished to the furthest extent imaginable. And if she's lying about it, then I hope there's some repercussions as well, because there's no place for either one of those things. But, yeah, I don't know what's the truth here, but I think it's smart on Georgia's part to go ahead and make the move to, take him out of the picture for a little bit.
All right, last thing in this opening segment, it is a game tonight. We mentioned Liberty last night winning in overtime tonight. New Mexico State at Jacksonville State, 6:30. That game is on ESPN2. And, of course, 3 games tomorrow. It's not UTEL, it's UTEP in that last game against Western Kentucky. College football tonight And then also these 3 games that you see, including James Madison, Coastal Carolina, could be a really good one on Thursday night.